Hi, this is Cindy from Part-Time Permies.
And Michael.
And today we're going to do a video on our 5 homesteading goals for 2018. It's a collaboration started by Liz Zorab over in Wales, so I'll link her channel down below. So we'll start with our first goal for the next year, and that will be on the garden. So what are we planning on doing in the garden?
So we're going to continue, this is what, year 4 on the garden?
About that, yeah.
So this will be beginning year 4 since moving in. We've been building up the soil. We're going to continue to do that. We have 2 separate gardens. We had a new garden we added 2 seasons ago, right late in almost May. That's quite large, and so that's the one that was built on sand, and then we have some raised beds. We're going to link those 2 together, and then we're going to continue to build them. But our biggest thing is we want to move closer to our 50% food preparation or growing, and so I've been awfully busy in the last year and really wasn't able to do nearly as much in the garden as I wanted. So part of the goal is to get a little more intensive on those things and spend some more time in there, which was always planned. It just wasn't possible. So.
Well, working 90 hours a week at a restaurant didn't help that one. But
yeah, working and teaching. So we're going to try and balance that out a little more and moderate it in with other things. So yeah, we want to create not just your traditional vegetable garden and sort of the salsa garden that everybody does. We want to be more diversified, and we've always done that, but more roots, better percentages of roots and greens and cabbages and things that become a little more rounded out, and I think we've done a good job of that before, but every year we figure out what you got a little too much of and what you feel like, well, geez, I really could use a lot more of that, or right. Seasonally planted every few weeks so that we get a prolonged season, or what we're hooping. Of course, as soon as you think you've balanced it out, you either change your eating habits or the weather and things change, and then you thought you had the right amount compared to last year, and the thing that did great failed, and then you decided maybe you should go back to planting more.
Well, the first year we had the new garden, the first year what took off? I mean, it was primarily our brassicas.
Yeah.
Our cabbage, our cauliflower, and broccoli did great the first year. But last year, those did nothing. Yeah,
it was so dry. It was pretty hot, and we went about 6 weeks where we had very little rain. We irrigated a bunch, probably a little less than we should have, but still it was so dry it really didn't matter.
So we'll continue the garden. Another thing that's semi-related to gardening that we want to do is we want to start a greenhouse. And we have 2 ideas for greenhouses. One that might be easier to do and be not permanent, but something that could be removable is actually enclose the front porch with almost like hoop-like setup. Idea for a greenhouse would be to extend some ECM off the roof line here, about out as far as the garage roof line, and then down, and putting plastic over that, maybe even a double layer of plastic over that, so that we can have a greenhouse right here, right off our front door.
Efficient, inexpensive, and easy to work with. We've been doing low tunnels, 4-foot low tunnels for quite a few years, just small amounts. So that's, I guess, part of the bigger goal in the garden, and is to continue our 3 and 4 season growing. We've done it casually, but to expand that, and just maximize it. We're not looking to feed ourselves year round. But the more we can do it, the more successful we are, the better. So greenhouse is an extension of that.
Yeah, extend the seasons with a greenhouse. Having one, using the front porch as a base for one. It faces south, which is nice. It's right off the house, so you could just go outside in the fall and early spring and gather stuff. It will hold the heat better because you get the heat from the house.
You get the passive heating.
Yeah, from the house as well as from the sun. So we might actually be able to extend that beyond what we could a greenhouse that's off the house. So there's some advantages to that, so we might try that first. But we also have materials to be able to make our own greenhouse out of reused, upcycled windows, old windows. So if we have time to do both, that would be great. We'll probably start with the one right off the house, is my guess.
Yeah, I mean, looking at, what is it they say, for winter and four-season gardening, or even just all types of gardening, everybody says make it convenient, make it right outside your door, right outside your kitchen, so that it becomes a very easy activity to want to go into the garden and to harvest. And as it gets into the winter, it actually becomes very cumbersome. Nobody wants to go out far into the yard or deep into a property to go get product. So
Sure.
yeah, the idea is it's sheltered, it's facing the right direction. We do need to work on some tree thinning.
Thinning to get more sunlight to it. But we're planning on that anyway, which actually takes us into another one of our goals. So I guess goal number 3 is to really try to move towards a food forest out front. We've put a couple things in there. We've put some chestnut trees, and that's really about it. We have locust trees already, but they're huge and shade the whole area.
And we have some vines. We have some blackberries and raspberries and a few assorted things that have naturally been there. So. Yeah. So the food forest has been a priority for a year and a half. Really took off in the last year. With Justin Rhodes, some of his visits to some food forests. When we saw more of what was going on, we've kind of talked about that before. We said that's exactly what we want to do. It's going to work because it matches our surroundings and climate and soil. That's everything we wanted to do. We just didn't know that was how to do it. So it's been a goal to work on the food forest. Part of that we've talked about before. We have some very large locusts, which do have a purpose. But they're very large, and they're shading out our maples, and we have a little bit of oaks and some wild black cherry.
We want to thin out some locust trees to bring some more sunlight in there. We'd like to encourage the maples to grow, because that would provide a source of potentially maple syrup.
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 maples, and it's not too many, but we'd like to keep those.
They're smaller.
The only problem with maples that we do know is their leaf cover is so intensive that it shades out everything. It kills the grass, everything underneath it. So you can't grow too tightly in and around maples, but we just have them intermixed.
Yeah. Although there are some shade-loving plants, including ones that we want to get in the ground, which we didn't get before the winter, but then the seeds are in the fridge, are the pawpaw trees.
Yeah.
They love the understory plants and love the shade, so we might be able to get some of those in there. And they're shorter trees or shrubs.
So I guess part of the big plan of all these 3 goals is we sort of figured out purposefully, accidentally, we kind of fell upon the plan is we have the Cultivated Garden, which is 2,000 square feet or so, and that's going to have sort of your traditional garden but done in more of a permaculture interplanting style,
like a biointensive garden.
Biointensive, using the French biointensive, and a little bit of 3-season, 4-season. So that's always been in the works, but we want to segment, and then we have a back forested area which pretty much is staying the way it is. We're doing a little
foraging back there,
almost no manipulation other than keeping it clear, so we have a little grassy paths that we can use those and get back there. So those are 2 segments. So we have cultivated and we have forested, and then we have some grassy, play areas or whatever that are open. But then the front is the 3rd section. It's the in between, and that's going to be the semi-managed or lightly managed food forest. And that's going to give us 3 zones, or really a 4th, a living zone. And so we've figured out that if we segment into these 4 zones, we have a plan for long-term development and use of the property. Another
goal that we have to gardening related actually is the hugelkultur bed. We already have one, but we would like a second. It was kind of on the goal for this year, but just didn't get to it. So either early spring, the best time to do it is in the fall, but if we could get it done in early spring, then we have a second hugelkultur bed to use starting next season.
We'll just plant it with herbs or roots or basic stuff this year, not worry about getting much of a yield off of it, just let it settle in.
herbs, roots, and probably some nitrogen fixers to get it kick-started a little bit. So some beans and peas and things like that.
Just whatever happens on it, it's fine. It's just sort of a test and let it settle in. And then we'll focus on using it a little more heavily the following season.
And then another, well, if we're moving towards chickens, we haven't talked about them at all. We did a lot of updates this year for the chickens, but I do have a couple things I'd like to do for the silkies. Their coop is one that came with the house, and I believe it was actually a rabbit hutch originally, so it's not really ideally set up for chickens. So I would like to kind of redo their winter coop situation, which also means I probably need a chicken tractor to be able to move the silkies into for the summer, so I can work on the winter coop. So first step would probably be to try to get some sort of mobile setup for the silky flock. We already have that set up for the main flock, so they're pretty good. And then work on getting a better winter coop for them for next year. Especially now that they have a goose in there with them, because the goose is so big, Gus barely fits in that coop. So we'll work on that for the silkies. That way we can also maybe expand the silkies a little bit, get a few more girls there, because they are our incubators. We don't have any artificial setups, so if we have enough silky girls, they go broody regularly, we can up the meat chicken production, because they'll be raising our chickens for us, and that can lead into more meat production here, as well as providing our layers for us as for the main flock. So we have a few goals along those lines. I think that's our 5. So the garden, the greenhouse, the food forest, the hugel culture bed, and then updating the silky living spaces. There are probably a couple little things that we'll be doing as well. We've been talking about whether or not to get new puppies next year, maybe sometime. So so I think maybe I want to, but we have to work the details of that out and timing of that out. We want to, as far as the channel goes, I'm hoping that now that Mike's home a little bit more, running the business from home, that we'll be able to do some more cooking videos. So I'd like to be able to do once a week. I'm not sure it'll be every week exactly, but we'll see if we can aim for that. And of course we will be continuing our foraging videos with stuff on property, and when we get a chance to go with Nobby next year, we'll try to expand on that. Hopefully we'll have a little more moisture next year so that we can have some more mushrooms included in it.
Yeah, it was a tough year for a lot of things, but mushrooms were probably one of the worst crop cycles last year, which means it might be a great one this year.
Yeah,
it's snowing like crazy the last week and a half, so a good snowpack is the first step towards
moisture in the ground.
Good mushrooms, and then we have to get the weather and temperature to behave come May or so for morels and move from there. But
so we'll have more foraging videos, we'll have more cooking videos, maybe we can incorporate some puppy training videos. We'll have, of course, our gardening, our building, our chickens, our food forest, everything we're doing here. But if there is anything in particular you're interested in, please comment below, because that'll give us an idea of what types of videos our viewers are interested in, and what projects we have going on here, and incorporating all of that. So please comment below. That would be very helpful, and let us know what you like to see. And Happy New Year. It's 2018. Well, almost. Today is the 31st, so this is New Year's Eve. By the time we get this video up, it might be New Year's Day. And we'll see you with the next video.
Happy New Year.